Do you know ball? Do
Dino
you know
Ball.
ball? Do you know
Dino
ball?
Ball. Dino
Do you know
Ball.
ball?
Hmm.
All right, back with episode 5, right? This is our fifth episode
Something like that.
podcast. Um, Want to hop straight into things, Matt. I
Absolutely.
feel
Hmm.
like this first segment is completely you you to
Yeah,
discuss.
absolutely. So we ended our last podcast with rumors of Marcus Stroman, where he was gonna go, where was he gonna go? And then, 5 minutes after we end the podcast, he signs with the Yankees. 2 year, $37 million deal. He's kind of a bitch, I'm not gonna lie to you. But it's a very good deal for the Yankees. They saw it as a steal, and I see it as a steal. You know, I think, for those that don't know, like I said, Marcus Stroman's a bitch, the biggest bitch on planet Earth. However, he's a diehard Yankee fan, and everything he's been posting, on his Instagram stories, just goes to show how much he wants to be a Yankee. He never did this with the Mets because the Mets are just like a bottom tier organization. But when you join a top tier organization, you show like your pride for being a part of the organization. And the Yankees organization, they were aware of his off the field antics on social media and just in general his comments he's made, controversial stuff I'm not going to get into because I don't really know the details about it. But he had a conversation with the media after signing with the Yankees, and they brought up his media, Twitter, whatever, and he says he's misunderstood. I don't think so. I think he's a bitch. But, I'm hyped for him to, be a Yankee because I know he'll show a lot of fight because he's now part of like the actual New York team and maybe he'll, you know, get a ring with us. He probably will, honestly. He did talk with Brian Cashman face to face. Him and Cashman, they laughed about their past. They just got over it quickly. He's gonna wear number 0, and that's about it. 0 represents the number of Fs he gives. Simple as that.
Yeah, no. Why don't you give the listeners a little bit of a taste of what the new starting rotation is going to look like for the Yankees
We're
going
gonna
into
be
2024?
Yeah, the Yankees are gonna be rocking with Garrett Cole at the front, best pitcher in the league by far. Number 2 at this rate is gonna be Carlos Rodon, second best pitcher in the league by far, no debate. Marcus Stroman is probably going to be their number 3, which is very solid number 3. Nestor Cortez would be the Mets ace. And then number 5 is going to be probably Clark Schmidt or one of their prospects. Or unless, they splurge and they can get Blake Snell to come down to a lowing asking price. And maybe you just slot everyone down one except for Garrett Cole and Blake Snell's your 2. But we're not going to talk about Blake Snell. We talked about him a lot with Chris in the last podcast.
We did. But you make me not even want to compliment you. You do. You really make me not want even to compliment you because I was gonna say, that this deal with the Yankees and Stroman is very. I personally think, and putting my Mets fan like aside, bias aside, I do think it's a steal because I believe that his initial asking price for a contract was like over 100 mil or something like that. It was at a crazy amount. So to for him to come all the way down to 37 mil for 2 years to settle at that price is kind of ridiculous for the Yankees to go out and grab him. Um, but I think that just goes to show you like how much like the market was on Stroman because I don't really think there was many other teams. I mean, like I know the Cubs obviously would have liked to have him back, but I don't think there was many traction. So yeah, I guess he was forced to sort of settle on this short-term deal with the Yankees. Maybe look for a bigger deal once he goes back into free agency in 2 years.
Well,
Um,
I think he took a discount to play with the Yankees though, because he actually wants to be here. You
I
know what I
mean,
mean?
I hate to say it because you know being in the Queens, being the little brother. That
Yeah.
pains
I'm
pains
glad
me to
you I'm
say.
glad you say that.
It
Yeah.
pains me to say, but it's true.
There's 27 reasons why you're the younger
The
brother.
the Yankees do have a solid squad going into 2024, and I do think that they can make a big push for the playoffs this year and potentially win a ring. But it's
Can't say the same
time is
about
only
the
going to
Mets.
tell.
Yeah.
Time's only going to tell.
Can't say the same about
But
the Mets though.
speaking of Mets,
Yes.
I feel like that there's not really much news because there hasn't been much news all offseason with the Mets. It's been the same talk for the past couple months. expected to get Yamamoto. That never happened. That was supposed to be our biggest free agent signing this offseason. Never happened. And now we head into today's day and age, and it's still the same stuff. People reporting the same things. Nothing's changing. It's same thing. It's the Mets are still hunting for a DH, and the obvious candidates would be Justin Turner, Jorge Soler, and JD Martinez. But of course the main guy that they would want um to sign in this ideal scenario would be Soler. And many people on Twitter and around the world as Mets fans are saying if they don't sign Soler, then this offseason is complete bust. Do I agree?
Well, I think it's a bust anyway, but
Do I
continue.
do I agree? Not necessarily because again, they stated this year that they're not going to be competitive until at least at the very minimum next season. So they're lining up to sign bigger guys, especially missing out on Yamamoto, bigger guys next season. So I think they're doing minor work just to fill out their roster, just to see what they got going into 2024. This is going to be a very pivotal year for guys like Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos, who are going to have to prove themselves if they want to stay on the roster. Um, but the question really with the Mets is whether or not they're going to pursue these guys. It's whether or not if they need these guys right now. And, John Heyman went on a podcast earlier this week, um, with David Stearns, and he said that if there's a need for the Mets to get a DH, they will go out and get it. But right now, primarily, they are focused on bullpen pitching. They're still looking at guys like Wandy Peralta. They want things right now to set up Edwin Diaz and ease into that closing job that he does so well each year. But um other than that, the only other Mets news there is right now is that they made a pretty decent splash in the international market this past week. They got catcher Giovanni Rodriguez, and of course they just added another Guerrero to the roster, Vladimir Guerrero. He plays outfield and first base, brother of Vladdy Guerrero and the son of Vladimir. It's a whole bunch of stuff. But those are just two of the four prospects they signed. They actually did pretty decent. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what we have in the farm system, but at the moment there's not much to talk about when it comes to Mets news.
Yeah, there's in fact not just like not a lot. There's absolutely nothing to talk about.
Nope, no traction. Nothing to work towards right now.
Mhm.
Just gotta
Yeah,
go into the season, be a fan, and root for the team you love. That's
you
pretty
gotta
much
yeah gotta let David Stearns cook a little bit though.
right
He's been
now. He's just
cooking.
filling out the roster, so can't blame him there. But you know, we should probably move on to more exciting news. You wanna
Hmm.
you wanna introduce this because you love this team so much, so
Excuse me.
much,
Excuse me.
so much. You love
I
this
do.
team.
This team sucks. This team that we're about to talk about. Um, Hater. I barely know her.
You did not just do that.
I did.
You did not just do that.
The best closer in the MLB, Josh Hader, yesterday, as we're recording this, signed a 5-year, $95 million deal with the Houston Astros. The deal, they did this the right way. No deferrals, right? Because deferrals suck.
The Pharaohs do
Largest,
suck.
largest present day deal for a relief pitcher in baseball history. He joins the Houston Astros with an already pretty top heavy bullpen. And now you're going to pair him up a great 1-2 punch, him and Ryan Presley
I still can't believe that.
is
Still
going to
can't
be
believe that.
nasty. It's going to be nasty. The Astros have been kind of cutting costs the past couple of years. They let like very notable guys such as Correa walk, George Springer, Garrett Cole. They've been letting a lot of their big free agents walk, and I think part of the reason was simply just money problems. The owner kind of wanted to cut back, and those reports were being reported this offseason. Like those reports never go away. So to see them spend 95 million on a closer is kind of mind-boggling, but he is the best closer in the league. A lot of people don't know, but Josh Hader actually started off in the Astros organization, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow,
And he got
I did not know
traded.
that.
Yeah, I forgot who he got traded but
Not
I'm
know
gonna
that.
look it up um for what's it called for entertainment purposes. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
look it up. Look it up.
so he was drafted by the Orioles. So that's my mistake. But then he got traded to the Astros, and he was with the Astros for like 2 years, and then they traded him to the Brewers, where we kind of knew him before. That's kind of where he got his fame. He was traded for Brett Phillips. Oh no, he was traded with Brett Phillips, Domingo Santana, and Adrian Hauser in exchange for Carlos Gomez and Mike Fiers. Well, Mike Fiers won them a ring, so I guess kind of works out. I don't know. They won a ring with Mike Fiers, so it doesn't really matter. Um, but anyway, speaking of like the deferrals, Edwin Diaz's contract was 102 and a half. Um, so that's kind of and it kind of goes to 93.1, which is why Hader's deal is technically the biggest for a relief pitcher. But also Josh Hader's known for his off the field stuff. I'm just gonna put the tweet on the screen when I edit this, so people kind of know what we're talking about. But he would have
Okay.
been great. He would have been
Okay.
great in pinstripes. He would have been great. I think the Yankees really could have used him. Um, but Clay Holmes is probably the best closer in the league, so it doesn't really matter if we have Josh Hader or not. I think the other New York team could kind of use a pitcher.
Well, okay. Hold on. Before we get into that, because see now, hate with the deal with Hader, right? Had a very dominant year last year, pitched very well for the Padres. But if you go back just a season ago, I'm pretty sure it was 2022, he had a rough season, rough season. Um, so, but it's Josh Hader. It's a guy that's proven himself time after time that he can go into tough scenarios and he could close out games for a win. And to pair him with Ryan Presley is impressive for the Astros to do. I mean, that's probably one of the best. No, not one of the best. It is the best 1-2 punch in all of baseball for bullpen wise. But when it comes to best closer of baseball, there's only one guy that's the best closer in baseball.
And he's
Even
now in the
though
Houston Astros.
even though
And
he
he's now in the
wasn't
Houston Astros.
even though he wasn't playing last season.
Felix Bautista. Yeah, you're right. You're right. He got hurt.
That
He
guy's
got hurt.
Edwin Diaz,
You're
and
right.
don't you ever forget it because he's
No,
the best closer in
he's not.
baseball.
Look,
Healthy, as long as he's healthy, he's the best closer in all of baseball,
you're
and
just
there's
so
no debate.
wrong. You're just
No
so
debate.
Edwin
Cannot
Diaz
wait to
had
see him
one good
walk
year
out
for
this
the
year.
Mets. One good year.
Best closer in baseball.
One good year, and he's the best closer in baseball.
Not he's
I
not he
need to
didn't just have
remind
one
you.
good year
I
though.
need to
Like
remind
you
you.
got to remember that though.
That's right. He had
Didn't
two good
have one
years.
good
He had
year. He
one good
didn't
year with
just
the
have one
Mariners.
good year.
He had one good year with the Mariners that got him traded to the Mets, and then he was poop for like what the first 2 years with the Mets, and then he just became good. And all of a sudden he's best player. He's not.
Dominant, dominant, dominant. Well, we'll see what he
What do you
does
do in the
next.
playoffs
We'll see
though?
what he does. He pitched the
Against the Padres, remember that?
he pitched
Remember
the
that?
best he could. He pitched the best he could
The
with
best
the
he could
scenario
was
that he
giving up
could.
like a 3-run double to Trent
No,
Grisham or whatever
he
it
did
was.
not do
Yeah.
that.
Yes,
That
he did.
once he
He
closed out the game with DeGrom, the second game when DeGrom was on the mound,
Yeah, and
and
then game three, the
and
most
then
important game. What happened? What
game
happened?
three, they
What
were
happened?
already down. They were already down and out.
Well, if he was
They
really
were
the
already
best, he
down
could
and
have
out.
stopped the bleeding. He
He gave
didn't.
up like one or two
He
runs.
didn't. I would personally take, honestly, Josh Hader, Clase, and Bautista all over him. I'd even take Clay Holmes over him, personally.
That
No
is
bias.
that's a wild statement. That's a wild statement.
That's not wild. That's just, I think,
Clay Holmes is one of the most lobs.
lobster.
He's not
He'd literally
consistent.
be your best
He is
reliever.
not
He'd
consistent.
be your best
He's
reliever.
not consistent.
He'd be your best
He's
reliever.
not consistent
He'd be
because
your best
you know
reliever.
what? When people figured him out,
He'd literally be
he
the
got
Mets'
hit.
best
He
reliever.
got hit.
He'd be
He
the
got
Mets' best
literally
reliever.
hit.
Yeah, that happens with every pitcher. You figure out a pitcher, boom, they're gonna get hit.
Yeah, well, that hasn't happened with
It happened. It
Diaz.
happened. Yeah,
Hasn't
that's
happened
not
with
true.
Diaz.
It happened with Diaz his first year with the Mets.
That's an
He
adjustment
was the
period.
worst pitcher
That
in
was
baseball.
literally an adjustment period
Yeah,
with the
and Clay Holmes
Mets.
was adjusting also to being
He
a
was
closer.
adjusting to the New York atmosphere.
Clay Holmes was a random pitcher in the Pirates organization. He was never a closer. Yankees made him a closer. He was adjusting. Okay. Edwin Diaz, you know, got lit up. He was used to being a closer and he got lit up his first years with the Mets. I'm actually looking
Yeah,
this up
and
right
then he
now.
worked and he worked. Yeah, it was like 2021 or something. Yeah, it was 2021. It was the year prior to that dominant year he had in 2022. And I wish he pitched last season because it would have been a whole lot different if we had our closer and David Robertson to pair with um Diaz and bridge to Diaz, because that was the whole goal going into last season, was to provide a bridge to Diaz to get him to pitch in the ninth and not have him have to work 2 innings. But had never panned out because he got hurt in the baseball classic, because of for some reason he decided to jump up and down and tear his ACL and be out
So
for the
he's not
whole
allowed to
year.
celebrate.
I'm not saying he's not allowed to celebrate. I'm saying he's not allowed to celebrate stupidly. He celebrated stupidly. Like,
Jumped.
that was stupid.
He
Stupid.
jumped.
Out of all the ways you could possibly get hurt, that was probably the worst way. And that was the worst. That we had to battle adversity so many times in 2023 last season, because if you think back before the season even started, we lost their top closer. We lost our closer. He was gone for the whole year. Done. Shut him down. Then we lost Verlander, who went on the 15-day IL before the season even started. And Scherzer had problems all year last year, even when he went to the Rangers. So we had to battle adversity a ton, a ton.
Okay, well, enough about this. Let's move on.
But yeah, okay. More of a wholesome story. More of a wholesome story.
Yeah.
Um, Carpenter.
Oh,
I'm not
but
reading what you wrote, bro.
okay.
I'm
I
not.
thought you were gonna read the other thing. Okay, continue.
No, no, we're not reading the other thing. The other thing doesn't matter. Carpenter, Yankees legend apparently now, because that's what you think.
He's a Yankee legend. He'd
Agrees to
be the
term
Mets'
on a
best
deal
player.
that would bring him back to St. Louis. You know, Carpenter did have a disappointing year with San Diego, but he did have a great year with the Yankees the year prior. Carpenter's a guy who did he start his career off with the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think he was a Cardinals' whole career. I will look it up for you. Um, St. Louis legend.
He
Then
is. That's the honest legend, is Matt Carpenter with St. Louis, because but it's good to see him go back and get a spot, because you got to think, like, how long does Matt Carpenter have left in his baseball career? You know what I
well,
mean? How
yeah,
old is Matt Carpenter right now?
like 35. Let me see.
You figured
38.
you
38.
you figure maybe 1 to 2 more years. This might be his last year. Maybe he wants to retire as a Cardinal where he
I
started.
think I think this is his last year. I think, regardless of how it goes. Um,
Yeah, I think so
it it
too.
it didn't the Yankees, because they're such a great top tier organization, they were able to kind of revitalize his like abilities a little bit, right? Then that led to the Padres kind of giving him like a stupid contract. But he did not do good for the Padres.
Not at
Kind
all.
of reverted back to the pre-Yankee form. And now he's just gonna probably do what Pujols did and Wainwright and Yachty and probably just end his career there
Where he
in St.
started. Yeah.
Louis. Yeah.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I don't blame
It's
him.
yeah, it's nothing notable really. I don't think it's going to really change the trajectory of the Cardinals season, but it's just more for like a for fun thing. Like, Carpenter, we love you. Come finish your career here. He'll probably be a bench guy for them, maybe a DH type of
Yeah.
guy, lefty guy. He's a
Good
utility. He can
platoon. You
he
could
can play
platoon him in
everywhere.
DH. Yeah,
With the
but
Yankees, he played like outfield, infield, everywhere. So
well, yeah,
we'll see
no,
what
I
happens.
I remember I remember him with the Yankees. I actually went to a Yankees Red Sox game and I saw him hit a absolute nuke. But yeah, I remember that year. I remember that year because he was really, really good with the Yankees. And then I don't remember if he get hurt. Yeah, he did get hurt, which
He
which put him out.
I think it was against Seattle. He like fouled a ball off his ankle or his foot or
Yeah,
something, and
yeah.
he was out until the playoffs. And then when he came back in the playoffs, Aaron Boone slotted him back into the lineup, and
hmm
he had like months off with like no rehab, so it just was not he was not the same player that he was.
No, no, he was not the same player. But it's just good for him that he's ending his career in the place where he started. So just like Albert Pujols and Wainwright, all those guys. But I'm gonna let you introduce this next segment
Mhm.
because
So yeah, we're going from the old to now the young. Okay.
indeed.
Uh, basically DraftKings, not sponsored. They released their odds for AL Rookie of the Year, and we're just gonna go through the notable ones. I'm not gonna read all of them. Basically the highest odds, no surprise, Jackson Holiday. Then we go to Evan Carter,
Mhm.
Wyatt Langford, and then all the way at the bottom, but still like top 10, Everson Piera. I want to talk about the top three for a second. Baseball is just such a fun sport where you can just call up a random minor leaguer and they just, pop off. They change the game. They change the trajectory of a franchise. Aaron Judge was a compensation pick, right? Boom, face of the franchise for the Yankees. Incredible. You like I'm not saying he's a random prospect. He was one of their top prospects. Julio Rodriguez, one of the top prospects in baseball, but Mariners call him up and look at the Mariners now. They're kind of a fun team. Will they make the playoffs? I don't know. We'll talk about that later. But you have the top three specifically, Holiday, Carter, Langford. This is kind of interesting
Carter
because
was great.
yeah,
Carter was
they're
great.
already part of amazing teams. The freaking Orioles, best team in the AL or the AL East, whatever you want to say. They have the best farm system. They're adding the number one prospect in baseball to their roster
Yeah, it's
on
definitely
opening
going to be
day.
a bolster because but they did struggle. They did struggle last year in the postseason. They did struggle
And
quite a bit.
yeah, I just think that's because of their age. I just think they're inexperienced. But that happens to young teams, and I think Orioles fans would still they're not going to complain that they necessarily lost, but because they were not supposed to be that good at all, and they kind of blowed past all the projections that they had for them, and you add Jackson Holiday to that already pretty stacked infield. With like Gunnar Henderson, who had a great year. And obviously they have Adley, Cedric Mullins manning it in center field. They have a very, very fun young team. And to add Jackson Holiday as a Yankee fan, that kind of sucks, but he's gonna be a fun player. And then you add Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, both a part of the Angels, not Angels, Rangers organization after they just won the World Series and they're adding more top talent to their opening day roster, it's going to be insane. The Rangers are going to be a force for years to come. It looks like DeGrom made a really good decision going there.
Yeah, not just DeGrom, Scherzer.
Scherzer also, it's
Signing the
incredible.
opposite.
Hmm.
Evan Carter was really, really good in in the postseason, especially for them. And throughout the season too. Like he was a really good stud, played great defense, hit the ball very well, came up big in a lot of clutch situations for the Rangers in the postseason, and ultimately played a decent role in leading them to the World Series title this year. But I'm really excited to see some of these young guys actually take the field, especially Jackson Holiday, because the Orioles, who are especially young based team, um, didn't have a lot of experience last year. Now you're adding another young guy. They do need maybe they don't really need veterans because they're just gonna grow together. They're gonna grow together and gonna grow up. Um, so I think they just got the taste of what the team could be last season, and now they're gonna just continue to progress, especially with Jackson Holiday. Gonna mold him into maybe potentially the face of the franchise, and he's a very, very good bat to add to the lineup. Excited to see him play. Um, but yeah, these young guys are gonna get their chances to prove how they're worth in the MLB.
Absolutely. They're all babies in that aspect that they're young. And speaking of baby, hit song by Justin Bieber. Does that last name sound familiar? We're gonna move on
It does. It does
to
sound
Shane
familiar.
Bieber.
Shane Bieber.
Shane Bieber, Zach, you want to give the spiel on Shane Bieber?
Yep, I'll introduce him. So Bieber was rumored for a while in the offseason to be traded, but now it seems that as so the Guardians are unlikely to move the star pitcher. The Guardians believe that they can win the division and they don't want to deal their ace just yet but however, this could obviously all be changed at the deadline depending on where they're placed in their division. That division has always been sort of weak, you know. So I guess we're gonna see where they lie come trade deadline. But the Yankees were said to be in the mix to acquire the Cleveland Ace, but after signing Stroman, they may pivot somewhere else. I don't know exactly what they're gonna pivot to, but you can't as a Yankees fan, Matt, you really can't expect much more if they do get a big guy, especially like Blake Snell, because they've been talking to him, but they did offer him a contract and he did not accept. So, um, talking about like big name guys, I don't know. I can't see the Yankees signing another one. Maybe one like a guy that like second string, maybe starting pitcher, just to fill out their rotation. But like right now, I think you're kind of solid right now in rotation. I don't think you're gonna need to do much more to improve to going into 2024. So, I mean, I guess that's a good feeling for you to have um
Hmm.
rooting for your
Well,
team.
yeah, the Bieber rumors were like because everyone just seemed like the Yankees did not want to spend money, you know. So the Stroman like news like kind of just came out of nowhere, and like it just really picked up a lot of
It really
traction.
did. It
Yeah.
really did.
So Bieber was seen as like he's a good pitcher. He's a former Cy Young, you know, and the cost isn't as high as people think it is for Shane Bieber. So it was really just believed the Yankees could get him, you know, pair him back up with Matt Blake, who's the pitching coach for the Yankees, who worked with Bieber in his time in Cleveland. And everyone just kind of thought that that was going to be the go-to, get like a cheap starting pitcher, but like a very good starting pitcher. And like you said, now that the Stroman is now a Yankee, it's probably not going to happen. Obviously, you know, the Guardians want to win their division and they have probably the weakest division in baseball. I think their only competition, in my opinion, is the Twins. Because like let's be real, the White Sox are not going to do anything. The Tigers or they could make a push, but I don't think they're going to do anything. And the division's so bad, I can't even think of the last team. The Royals, right? They're not. Yeah, no, we're not even going to talk about them.
Well,
So yeah.
yeah. Bieber has been rumored for not just this offseason, but many off seasons, many trade deadlines, and yet the Guardians do not move him. They don't look to move him. They have not moved him, and I don't think they will ever move him until he eventually his time is up with the Guardians and his contract's over. But he's
Yeah.
he's been their guy. He's been a reliable guy to have on the roster for them for the past couple years. And it's just a guy they just don't want to part ways with, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Star talent like that. I don't blame him for not moving on.
Mhm. I
But
think it's going to be a very different situation at the deadline. You know, if the Guardians are out
could
of
be,
it,
could
they'll
be.
probably sell. There's been rumors that they would be open to maybe moving Class A also, which is really crazy.
I
But
I
if
don't see that, but
yeah,
I
if
mean I know
they're
there's rumors, but I don't see that happening.
Mhm. I don't either. He's so young, he's
Too
so
valuable.
good.
Too
Yeah.
valuable. Hmm.
But you know how the Guardians are, you know, they don't really spend a ton of money. So you know, come trade deadline, they're not in it. Twins or someone else run away with the division. Expect Shane Bieber to be gone, and I honestly at this rate would not be surprised if Class A is gone by the deadline also. But you know, we'll see. We will see.
It's funny that we mentioned the fact that the Yankees might go for some lower tier starting pitchings to fill out their roster.
Yeah.
Not that they need to. They don't really need to right now, but it's funny we mentioned that because the next segment is based totally off of those type of pitchers. So there's guys on the market, obviously like Ryu, Paxton, Woodruff, Lorenzen, those guys, those type of guys, but it's supposed to be heating up. That market's supposed to be heating up over the next couple days, maybe 7 to 10 days, according to John Heyman. Certain teams are obviously going to be involved in that market. Teams like the Padres, the Orioles, the Pirates, the Red Sox, the Nationals, who are going to be a sneaky good young team, going forward, and the Mariners, of course. These are all guys, especially Woodruff. Woodruff, I know the Mets were involved with him a little bit way back then, way back when, before Yamamoto fell. But even though teams are trying to go after him right now because um his value is low because he is not pitching next year. So they're gonna try to snag any team would love to have a guy like Woodruff. He's an ace caliber star. Um, so people are gonna try to snag him on the low because his value's low right now because he cannot pitch next year. He will not be able to pitch until 2025. That's definitely a guy for any team to look at, and it's a good guy to have on the rotation. So, and other guys like Ryu and Paxton, Lorenzen, they're all solid. They're all solid. They're the lower end guys just to fill out a rotation. The Mets do need a lot of that help, but again, like I said,
A lot, yeah.
with the Mets, they're not. I don't see them doing much more than they have already done. Um, especially when it comes to signing even guys like this. So I don't know. That's just my kind of take on these kind of pitchers.
hmm Um, I expect the Red Sox to get one of these guys. The name I've been seeing is Paxton. A lot. They could reunite with him.
It could.
Um,
It could.
thanks to our friend, our source, Chris Cotillo. We have some insider info. But we'll see how this lower end pitching market shapes out. These guys they're good. They're solid. They're not ace material. I mean,
No,
Paxton
not
was,
even
Woodruff was,
Woodruff.
but
Woodruff was
yeah.
when healthy, when fully healthy. Woodruff is ace material.
I think
Um,
Ryu hit like the end of his time in LA, you could maybe argue ace material. Like he was really good. And then he signed with the Blue
yeah,
Jays
yeah,
as like a big signing. It just really hasn't
hasn't.
really shaped out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, been
Um
hurt a lot of
mhm.
injury with
Yeah.
him,
Uh,
especially Paxton too. He's been injured a lot.
mhm.
Lorenzen just had a pretty decent year last year, going from being he's an all-star last year,
Yeah.
with the Tigers. Well, there's not much there, but the Tigers he was an all-star with, and then he went to the Phillies,
Threw a
did
no
pretty
hitter.
pretty
Hmm.
threw a no hitter, did pretty well there. So yeah, these are all guys that could be very useful and helpful to any rotation in the league right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
But that there's with that being said, like there's not much to go into with that kind of market because there hasn't been much traction in that area right now because there are still a ton of good top tier free agents still on the market. I know we've mentioned his name so much throughout these past two podcasts, but Blake Snell still hasn't signed with a team, so teams are probably going to go look to push for him first before they look at any of the lower tier guys to fill out their roster because teams need aces. And it's not just pitching too. It's Bellinger still hasn't signed too. I don't know when that's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
And Chapman,
Um
people like that, yeah.
Chapman too. Um but yeah, that's really all there has to do with that. Yeah, Matt, you want to introduce our good friend Yariel Rodriguez?
Yeah. So we talked about the Blue Jays a little bit. We talked about Ryu. Bellinger's been rumored there. Chapman, could go back. But, the Blue Jays kind of made this guy a priority, Ariel Rodriguez. Reportedly, I don't think it's finalized yet, if I'm not mistaken, but he'll be a Blue Jay at the end of the day. He's a Cuban pitcher, very solid, very solid. Great. He's got great stuff. If you saw in the World Baseball Classic, contract 32 million for 4 years. That's kind of a steal. I'm not gonna lie for the stuff that he can provide for them. And you might think 8 million is kind of a lot for a relief pitcher. Like it's understandable if you spend money on a closer, but I mean even that's kind of a lot of money. But there have been some speculation, not really, but talks that they might slot him into the rotation, which is what Rodriguez was kind of aiming for, kind of hoping for to get some time in the rotation. And if that's the case, to get a talent like that for $8 million in your rotation, that's honestly a very good deal. So, being in the Yankees division, the AL East, I'm kind of excited to watch him play. Not against us, but I've heard some good things about him. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know too much about him, but a lot of people are very excited for him to be in the MLB, to sign a deal with the Blue Jays. I've been seeing a bunch of tweets, so it's gonna be fun to see how he does and see if he can adjust to the level here.
Yeah, no, especially with the Blue Jays, they're expected to sign him and stuff like that. But they also are the front runners for Jorge Soler, which, that that's definitely a guy that
Yeah.
they need that type of guy on their team.
You got
So
competition, yeah.
yeah, definitely competition. But I again, like I said, with all these guys, I think all these guys are just going to use the Mets right now just to drive up prices for other teams that they would probably rather go to. Um, Blue Jays being one of them, especially with Soler. So I think that could be definitely a fun combination to watch, especially the Soler and Vladdy. Maybe going back to back in the lineup. That's definitely would be something, or that's something that would be very intriguing for fans to watch, especially seeing them both hit bombs in the Rogers Center. But yeah, no, nothing too crazy with the Blue Jays going on right now. Still, like I said, we were waiting on some big news to drop. But yeah, this next and final topic of today's podcast. Um, I just don't think we've covered it yet. It's happened. It's been a while. It happened a little bit ago, but I just don't think we covered it yet. So and the Giants have made a trade to acquire Robbie Ray from the Mariners in exchange for outfielder Mitch Haniger and right-handed pitcher Anthony Desclafani in cash. So the Mariners clear cash by getting former Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray, and then Seattle acquire an old friend in Mitch Haniger and add a solid arm in Anthony Desclafani. You know, San Francisco finally adds a big name this offseason after wanting to spend some big bucks. And it's not just the name they were expecting. Ray is expected to be back by the mid season because he is hurt right now, but he will be back for them. And it's it's kind of interesting what they're gonna do with him because you know the Mariners kind of placed him in their bullpen because him starting as a starting pitcher didn't really work out as they would have hoped. And a guy that a lot of teams wanted coming off that Cy Young year, but he just didn't perform as he normally performed with the Blue Jays. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't good. He was a 4 to 5 ERA pitcher. Like he wasn't good. He wasn't good for any team, especially the Mariners. And I don't understand. I don't understand this trade too because you know do you feel at all that I mean Mitch Haniger had a bad year. Desclafani's a decent, all right pitcher. He also struggles with injuries a lot too. But do you feel at all, Matt, that the Mariners, or not the Mariners, the Giants overpaid a little bit for Robbie Ray, for just Robbie Ray?
Um, I don't think so. The way I saw it, the way I saw it was the Giants wanted to add a big name all off season, right? They've been saying for a while that they want to spend big bucks on a player. They wanted to do it with Carlos Correa, and that fell through, right? They were rumored
Mm,
to be very much in on Yamamoto, and they were going to offer him a big contract. The same deal the Dodgers offered, or that Otani offered to every team. The Giants said, "Yeah, we'll do that," right? Like they would you're going to do that 700 million deferral. They want to spend
mm,
money. It's just the problem is there's this perception Buster Posey talked about San Francisco and living there in the city itself that for whatever reason, is kind of driving people away from it. Um, so they've been wanting to get a big guy all along, and like you said, it's not the name they were expecting probably or anyone was expecting.
mm,
But I think it works out for both teams. I think the Mariners are maybe trying to clear money for a Blake Snell if that's possible. And Blake Snell's better than Robbie Ray. So, if they get Mitchie H
mm,
and, Desclafani, old friends or old friend Mitch Haniger and Anthony Desclafani, um, to pair up with an off season with Blake Snell. It's a pretty solid off season for them. I'm not gonna lie. But the Giants, I think it's a fine deal, honestly, for them. They just hoping Robbie Ray can
fair enough.
come
Fair
back to
enough.
form. And I don't even think his contract's that bad, honestly, looking at it. Like 23 million. You're seeing what some people get now. Like,
Oh
what
my
did
God, it's
Frankie
ridiculous.
Montes get?
It's
Yeah, what did
ridiculous.
Frankie Montes get? Like 16 million or something?
About that, yeah.
It was something crazy. Like what people pay for now, front offices especially, they pay for innings, right? I know Robbie Ray was just hurt, but if he's healthy, he's gonna be a solid pitcher. He'll be under a 4 ERA. And for 23 million,
Hopefully,
I would take that. If he was doing that for the Yankees, like he had a 3.7 ERA with his first year with the Mariners, I believe. If he did that with the Yankees, I'd be fine with it at this point. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
I I think it's a fine trade. I think both teams
yeah.
get what they wanted.
Well, just barring, you gotta hope that because both sides of the deal, you could look at injuries, especially with Robbie Ray and his side. How he's not gonna be back till midseason, especially with Mitch Haniger too. He was really hurt a lot last year, and he didn't, and his numbers struggled because of it, because he was hurt. And Desclafani had a pretty good year last year, a decent year. But he also struggled. So it's all injuries all around for all players in this deal. But you just wonder what it's gonna be like when all these guys are ramped up and ready to go in 2024. Will it pan out for both sides? It's kind of like a whatever trade. They did it, they both had their reasons for doing it, but at the end of the day, you just gotta hope for both teams that these players pan out for them going forward, especially in 2024. And hopefully they play a big factor or a decent factor at least into making a playoff push for both teams. But
Mhm.
like you said, Giants were expecting bigger. They still are kind of expecting bigger. And as for the Mariners, we did get insight on that Blake Snell type thing from Chris last week. It's that whole scenario is interesting, and I hope that the Mariners do get in a way get Blake Snell because that's a fun group to watch. They never disappoint really, and you know they're always gonna be that like underdog team sort of. You know what I mean? Like that team you root for when your dog is out of the race. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
yeah, it's a good way
So
to put it. Yeah, they're
yeah.
fun.
So, but other than that, I guess we could conclude our week 5, our fifth podcast. Um, yeah, it's been a good one. Um, Going into next week, we will do another podcast coming up next Friday, I
Yeah.
believe.
Hopefully we have some good news for more because this is all in a
Yeah.
way a little bit old news in a
In
sense.
a sense, it's the best we could do right now. But hopefully the market starts to heat up over the next couple days, and we could relay more news and give our opinions on certain types of deals with certain types of players that are left on the market. But as of right now, we're signing off. Matt, you got anything to add?
I don't think I got anything else, man. I think
All
we're all
right.
good, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you guys next week.